In the spirit of respect, authenticity, and reconciliation, the town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of Sawridge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. Councillor Gramlich.
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Councillor Achoba.
Motion to adopt the minutes of previous meeting from February 4th.
Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Perfect. Let's move on to our new business. Report A. Joanne, floor is yours.
Good evening, your worship and council. So tonight I'm bringing back the municipal development plan amendment, amending bylaw number 1, 2025 to amend the municipal development plan land use plan map for redesignating lot R1 plan 7520877 at 201 14th Ave Southwest from natural environment and open space to regional commercial to facilitate possible future commercial development adjacent to Highway 2. So in accordance with Section 230 of the Municipal Government Act, Town Council must give bylaw, they gave bylaw 01 2025 first reading and held the public hearing that was required. On February 4th, 2025, first reading was January 14th, 2025. Currently, the subject lands maintain natural environment and open space designation in the municipal development plan, and an amendment is required. And the subject lands maintain a P community in the land use bylaw, and an amendment would be required as well. This is 2 plan amendments and they'll be running at the same time. The Municipal Planning Commission reviewed this application at its February 10th, 2025 meeting and had no concerns with the application. The public hearing for bylaw 01 2025 was advertised, referral letters were sent out, and to date we had no written verbal comments with regards to this redesignation. Originally, the parcel was intended to be developed as highway commercial, as a previous designation had been in place for some time and aligned with other surrounding properties with regard to the use and density. In July of 2001, the council of the day considered an application with regard to the mentioned lands to dispose of the lands designation as a municipal reserve. Ultimately, the council did not dispose of the designation and instead allowed an access road to be built across the lands and requested the zoning above mentioned lot be changed from C3 highway commercial to P community. This change was requested as the lands at the time housed the Tourist Information Center. On December 19th, 2001, bylaw 25/2001 changed the zoning as requested by the council. And as a result, the municipal development plan and municipal land use plan map was amended to accommodate the zoning change. In late 2024, administration began the process of removing the municipal reserve designation on the land. In December, the designation of municipal reserve was removed by motion of council, and it is currently in the process of being registered with Alberta Land Titles. The intent is to market these lands for commercial development, which will align with the surrounding properties and meets good planning principles. Redistricting the lands will allow them to be marketed for commercial use. So you guys could give bylaw 01 2025 second and third reading to enact the bylaw, or you could defeat the bylaw and the subject lands would remain as natural environment and open space. Notice of all the hearings and referral letters were sent out and advertised on the town's website and social media. And as well, should the bylaw pass, letters will be sent to adjacent landowners notifying them of the change. So the planning department has no concerns with this amendment and recommends council give bylaw 01 2025 second and third reading. Any questions?
Councillor Adams.
Same question as last time. So did the MPC hold their meeting and do this?
They held it on February 10th and they reviewed it and they had no concerns with the application.
Okay, I just got confused with the wording in there. I wasn't too sure. It says.
I know it says was to review,
Yeah.
but they held the meeting and they had no concerns with the application at all.
Councillor Hughes.
I move that bylaw 01-2025 to amend the municipal land use plan map of the municipal development plan by redesignated lot R1 plan 7520877 from natural environment and open space to regional commercial receive second reading.
Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor, and that is carried. Counselor Choba,
I move that bylaw number 01-2025 to amend the municipal land use plan map of the municipal development plan by redesignating lot R1, plan 7520877 from natural environment and open space to regional commercial receives third reading.
motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor, and that is carried. Okay. Let's move on to the next report.
So this is the application to amend the land use bylaw number 22, 2007 with redistricting bylaw 02, 2025. Again, this is for the exact same parcel of land, and this is to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw. All the same advertising and referral letters were sent out with regards to this bylaw. The MPC met on February 10th and reviewed the application, and they had no concerns and provided their support for the bylaw. The public hearing for bylaw 02, 2025 was advertised and referral letters were sent to adjacent property owners. And to date, no written or verbal comments have been received. The public hearing was held on February 4th, 2025, and there were no one came forward with any concerns at that as well. Again, this is the same information that I just presented on the same parcel of land that in 01, it went under land use bylaw change, and originally this was supposed to be a C3 highway commercial. The zoning was changed to accommodate the tourist information center on site. So your options are that you can give bylaw 02, 2025 second and third reading to enact the bylaw, or you could defeat bylaw 02, 2025 and the subject lot would remain as P community. Any questions? We don't have any concerns with this one as well. It's running with the other one.
Counselor Adams,
Move that bylaw 02-2025 to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw 22-2007 by redistricting lot R1, plan 7520877 from P Community District to C3 Highway Commercial District, receive second reading.
motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor, and that is carried. Counselor Gramlich,
Move that bylaw number 02-2025 to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw number 22-2007 by redistricting lot R1, plan 7520877 from P Community District to C3 Highway Commercial District, receives third reading.
motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor, and that is carried. On to the next.
Okay. This is an amendment to the land use bylaw number 22, 2007, redistricting bylaw number 6, 2025. So the purpose of this report is for council to consider first reading to schedule the required public hearing for bylaw 06, 2025. Our applicant is CDP Home Care and Disability Services, Inc. for 401 3rd Ave Northeast, legal land description lot 1, block 11, plan 5521 KS. So their proposal is the subject lands are proposed to be rezoned from C4 neighborhood commercial to CDC council direct control district to facilitate the development of a residential care facility, a nursing home. Given the property's location within a residential neighborhood, the CDC council direct control district designation provides council with the ability to oversee both current and future development in a manner that aligns with community planning objectives. In accordance with section 231 of the Municipal Government Act, town council must give bylaw 06, 2025 first reading and hold the required public hearing prior to passing a resolution. The municipal development plan, in accordance with the municipal land use plan map for the municipal development plan, the subject lands maintain a residential and general urban land use designation, and as such, an amendment to the MDP is not required. In accordance with the land use district map of the land use bylaw number 22, 2007, the subject lands maintain a C4 neighborhood commercial districting, and as such requires an amendment to allow a residential care facility. The Municipal Planning Commission has reviewed this application at its February 10th, 2025 meeting, and they had no concerns and indicated that they support bylaw number 06, 2025. The public hearing will be advertised on the Town of Slave Lake website and social media pages, as well as referral letters will be sent to adjacent property owners once first reading has been given. Bylaw number 06-2025 amends the land use district map of the land use bylaw by rezoning lot 1, plan 11, plan 5521 KS located at 401 3rd Ave Northeast from C4 Neighborhood Commercial to CDC Council Direct Control District in accordance with section 230 of the Municipal Government 230 subsection 1 of the Municipal Government Act. Town Council must give bylaw 06-2025 first reading and hold the required public hearing prior to passing a resolution. We'll advertise on the town's page and webpage and social media. Referral letters will be sent out. And because this is being brought forward by a member of the public, council must give first reading and schedule the public hearing from March 11th, 2025 is when I have it. I think that's supposed to be March 18th because is March 11th. I think was rescheduled to the 18th.
We do have a meeting on March 18th, yes.
Yeah, but not on March 11th.
We have a committee of the whole that I have in my calendar, but
Is it March 11th or 18th or the
Pardon me, for the committee of the whole or regular?
we have.
regular?
We have both.
We
We
have
have both
both.
scheduled, yes.
Okay, perfect.
March 18th, though it needs 3 weeks to run.
Okay, so
minimum.
that would be.
Yeah.
March 18th. That's what's in the motion as
Yeah.
well.
So the Planning and Development Department recommends the public hearing be scheduled for March 18th as required by the Municipal Government Act.
Councillor Hughes.
I will move that bylaw number 06-2025, which amends the land use district map of the land use bylaw by redistricting as follows. Lot 1, block 11, plan 5521 KS from C4 Neighborhood Commercial to CDC Council Direct Control District receive first reading and the required public hearing be scheduled for March 18th, 2025 at 6 p.m.
Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor. And that is carried. Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our report, MRC improvements and former front counter space. Joe, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor, Ward, and Council. I'm presenting tonight on the subject of MRC improvements in the former front counter space, the two sections over at the Multi-Recreation Center. The purpose of this report is to provide staff with direction regarding next steps at the MRC and the use of capital project allocation. Previous discussion as a background, previous discussion amongst staff and with mayor and council as to whether to move forward with the addition of 2 additional office spaces at the MRC and whether the town of Slave Lake should build out the former front counter area to house a commercial food vendor space. We have obtained materials and have had approval for the capital project. Presenting tonight 2 options. One, the first option is to use these previously ordered materials that cannot be restocked and refunded, doors and such, to enclose the former front counter space and complete minor renovations to the MRC front counter to be OC health and safety compliant and user-friendly for staff. As previously discussed, estimate for this work would be roughly $20,000 and would be out of the funds allocated for the original project and set aside. Second, to build out the former front desk space in preparation for the space to be leased and used as a food services vendor location in future with a cost of over $100,000. If council decides to build out the space with the second option for commercial use in the office build at the MRC would need to move forward, in my opinion, as well as to replace the loss of space at the MRC at roughly a cost of $100,000. So you then have a combined cost of both outfitting the former front desk space and then to create the office space to replace the square footage. Resource impacts, there's two different potential impacts. One, a smaller amount of $20,000 to finish the small renovation through existing project capital budget that's been approved, or a cost of $200,000 plus to do the build in both locations. The recommendation to council, as administration is prepared to proceed with either direction, this is a discretion at the decision at the discretion of town of Slave Lake Council.
Okay. Councillor Adams.
I'm confused on some of the description here. You're saying the build out of the vendor space. So by us not doing anything, the empty space that was there is now going to be used?
Well, it always has been used by staff through the year, and particularly more so in certain months than others. We have equipment there, we have storage there, we have lunchroom space, we have space that would be lost if we proceed as originally discussed with any sort of vendor space that's created there. We lose square footage that is used by professional staff, not on a full-time basis, Councillor Adams, but throughout the year in that location.
Are we then, is the direction of your department then to not lease out that space to a vendor in the future? And you just want to keep it as,
I think at this
That-
time, by creating a purpose-built space that's solely geared towards restaurant space or building it out to a certain percentage and then having an organization come in and build out the final segment of that build out, I don't see the return. And I don't see it being a priority based on some of the other pieces that we.
I'm not saying for a restaurant, I'm not saying to use this space, but it seems odd to put storage and office space in what should be your prime tunnel for vendor space.
I'm not in the realty business here in town, so I don't know availability or requirements of square feet. I know what it creates for us, and that's what I'm here to speak to, is it does create a need to have extra space in the facility, because though it does come across, it's often mostly storage. As I say, we use it other times a year and staff do use it. As I say, we put out an RFP for that space to be used and converted. In that case, it was strictly for to fit a certain criteria with regards to it being restaurant or concession space. We had 0 replies. That being said, in future, if it's ever deemed by the council of the day or yourselves for us to put an RFP that's more general, for it to be an office or RMT space or what have you, that's something we could look at. But we do have to be honest that we are losing square footage that will affect staff.
Here's my someone else. Here's my concern with it. I don't want a space that's going to be specific in that zone that's going to be specifically used for office space. It seems like a waste of an opportunity for us to expand the development of the MRC. With the amount we lose there now every year, we need to somehow offset that in order to either A, get it used, or B, make money. And I'd rather see it getting used if we're losing money. I'm fine with that. I don't want us to sit here and only like put our blinders on and not have this looked at. We did put an RFP out, like you say, but we have had some negotiations with this, with other parties. Now, saying that we're going to drop 200 grand to expand a place, I agree, that's ridiculous. But the same way Susan's Kitchen got started in there, I am up for doing something like that with something else that's coming in. Now, for us to only, as long as we're not making this office space permanently, I don't want that.
So
I guess long and short.
if I could just add, it's not a permanent office space. And if the right vendor came in, the current process that we had request for was for us to do the build out, and there was no return over a 10-year span on the money. We're not shutting the door on having somebody come in and look at that space, but they need to be willing to come in and do the work to take over that space. So it's a temporary, the office space exists, it is a lunchroom. The fixtures that were purchased for the original project are ours. So it's a temporary fix, can be taken down at any time with the right people or vendor that came in. So it's not a permanent solution to this space.
May I answer further to your question, Councillor Adams? I absolutely seek all means and avenues for revenue. I don't see the return on investment, the ROI for us spending what's been suggested by some parties to spend $100,000+ to get it ready for a leasing. I do not see any value in that. If we have interest from someone who approaches us, absolutely at any time, whether or not we had put the door in and changed the configuration slightly a year or two earlier, absolutely. I'm not going to turn someone away with a reasonable proof of concept and a desire to provide revenue in that space. But I do also have needs for staff currently. And if we're displacing people, we then need to figure out where we're putting them. So I presented some of the associated costs of what we create. I don't think I like your concept. If someone approaches us, absolutely. We can put it back out for RFP at any time, but we haven't had great success in getting someone who wants to come and invest in that space. And that's my concern, is that I don't think we as an organization, as the town, should be fronting those capital costs, which makes it great, again, for the leasee and potentially a franchise business with little return in long term for us.
Let Councilor Fuchs chime in.
I actually just wanted to ask Councillor Adams if he was willing to play in the space of spending $100,000 for improvements there, like in a capital project capacity. You're not?
No, I'm not saying that I am in favor of doing this bill for the sole purpose of doing it for the heck of it. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Now, that being said, I'm not wanting to close the door on opportunities. You're saying we're not willing to put money out and the return on investment isn't there. If I can ask for Susan's Kitchen and that facility, who paid for all the equipment in that facility and who paid to build that out?
Well, that was paid, I believe, much prior
By
to
the
my arrival here. That was paid out of monies through grants and other amenities post-fire when the complete reno was done. The decision was made when those types of monies come in. Edson's dealing with a similar situation now. They've got funding, federal, provincial monies, those types of pieces. They've decided not put a Susan's Kitchen in. Apparently, we did 12 years ago make that a priority, and we are responsible as part of that lease.
And what I'm saying with that is I'm in favor of that. It created a business within the community that had a need and we got traffic there and it filled a need for the people attending that facility. I think it made our facility stronger. What I'm saying is I do not want, I'm not saying to spend the money, but what I'm saying is we need to chase this down. People in the last, when was that place? 20 years of that being there, no one's chased us down for space. I'd like to see us starting to chase people down for space. Let's start getting that facility used to its maximum ability. That doesn't mean that I'm saying let's drop the 200 grand and see what happens. But I am willing to, I want us to keep chasing that, not just, oh, well, let's wait and see what happens. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can absolutely, we could broaden our RFP and go for an RFP and see what comes back, but
Well, I was just going to say, those types of discussions though are for strategic plan for council. So if all of council is in agreement that we need to be, or majority that we need to pursue those types of opportunities, that's what needs to come through, obviously, strategic plan and strategic direction.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's what I'm saying is there can be motions for RFPs and those other types of things, but this has to fall under the strategic plan moving forward.
we just want to get, like,
Adjusted.
there was a capital project last year and we want to make
Agreed.
sure that we're on the
That's
same page of not proceeding
Yeah.
with this current project. We do have some materials that we did have to purchase for that. So a temporary build out, no staff room should be out in the public. And then we can look at what the future holds, whether it's this year, next year, or the year after that.
And that's what we did ask administration several weeks ago to come back, taking a look at the possibility that this capital project might not be in the best interest currently for the facility, and how far we were along in that project and what we were able to do to pivot from that point, and if there was an option. So that's my understanding, is that this report is coming out of that request to see if we could pivot away from the current plan.
Yeah, I would just want, I wasn't quite done, just wanted to ask Councillor Adams that question. So personally for me, I'm not willing to spend $100,000 on that at this point in time. Very happy to do an RFP and see if there's any interest, but outside of that, I don't feel that there's value there. I actually think the MRC is quite busy. Every time I'm there, you can barely snag a parking spot. There's people all over the place. I think the facility is very well used right now. And there seems to be, high numbers of people there in attendance all the time, at least when I frequent. So I'm happy with as it is right now, but I wouldn't be, against an RFP to see if there was interest from people, but investing in it, not so much. My next question for you, your first option here. So you said you'd previously ordered materials, doors, et cetera. And then you want to enclose the former front counter space and then complete some minor renovations. Can you just remind me what that might look like and how we're not OHS compliant?
Well, we have the front counter space was always part of our, when the concept of moving forward with office build out was approved, part of the monies was to go towards a small improvement. Our front counter space, you can't sit at it. So our MRC front desk staff can't sit down in front of their computers and actually pull up to the desk. So it's ergonomically, it was built poorly. It's all cabinets, it's all drawers. There's no space to actually have staff sitting. So that's where that, if we're going to do some slight use of some of the equipment that we have that we can't return, which, as you can guess, with glass and windows and those types of pieces and doors, that if you don't put them into circulation, they don't store, they don't travel well, they tend to get put somewhere only to be dusted off years later or broken. So our thought was, would we clean up and secure the other space a little bit, have the contractor come in, do the work at the front counter at the same time and proceed with the project to bed, and then move forward as Mayor Ward suggested in the future with some strategic planning rather than continually just trying to push this piece now because we haven't had the feedback from the public during any of either of the RFP processes as to
Yeah.
a grand desire for the use of
Okay.
the space.
Outside, I just want to make sure that I'm fully understanding what you're saying. I just want clarification. So
We'd
the
use the one main-
$20,000.
We'd use the one main door,
Yeah.
Council Hughes,
Okay,
to secure off the former front desk space and clean up the front counter.
okay, yeah.
Make it
And make
more
the front counter
presentable.
more functional.
And then our main space, our current front counter space to make that more functional,
Okay.
practical for staff.
So you're not building offices off of the existing, like the current front counter right now. You're not building out around it. It's not
There's no,
expanding in any way.
there's no impeding any of the current floor
Okay.
space. There's no loss of square footage in the MRC.
Okay, and what are the OHS?
Well, I mean, it's more ergonomic than OHS. It's not a functional space.
Okay, and
It's just-
inside the offices that already
It would
exist,
be
et cetera?
me having to sit here to work at a computer that's there.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
I just want to add the materials that were, speaking of using the door and stuff, that would still be, so if we did make a change and add things in the future, those materials could still be reused for what they originally purchased for. So we're putting them in a place where we're using them and they're not getting broken in storage. And then if a change is made, they would still be able to be reused in the new space as well. So it's kind of a making sure they're looked after and protected until a change is made, if that decision is ever made. So just along that line.
Councillor
Okay.
Gramlich.
Perfect. I was a no on this one from the get-go, so I'm happy to see it come back and altered. So just want to thank administration for finding a way to reuse some of that stuff and save us a whole bunch of money on something that I didn't think we needed and doesn't look like we need it still.
Councillor Adams.
Statement on the question, I guess, and then I'll be done. One, the strategic plan part, we've already had this in our strategic plan right from the beginning. So it's been in there and we've just never gone anywhere with it.
Fair.
The space for the, when this first came before us, it was a need for space for desks, space for offices to transition people from here to be there. What's changed? Or is it just a matter of using that other space?
What's changed? Well,
Like, why don't you need it now when the presentation was to have it? I guess is what I'm getting, just so I understand.
so
Well, I think something that's changed from Joe's point is he's the third person who's been in that chair, right? So he might have a different vision than previous people in his position. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I'm speaking for you, but and I've heard it from previous staff, current staff. This was never really a want or a need from many. It was more of a fairy tale dream for some people. And yeah, so go ahead, Joe. But that's probably what's changed. You're
and I appreciate that. Historically, there was discussion that it was direction for mayor and council that we had a manager and one of my team over there on site and on location more often than was occurring. So I think that sort of started the initial conversation. Again, I was not privy to what initialized the project. I came in probably about 3/4 of the way through the project. And then I think, again, going to the necessity conversation that I mentioned a few minutes ago, Councillor Adam, in doing a site tour with staff and being directed to move forward, when the concept of the use of the retail space, it sort of really hammered home that if we're going to bring this person over and we don't have any extra space, then we need to proceed with that office space. And it then came back to us as feedback from community members and other parties. And then we presented on this a number of times. So it's something that I wish I could take back and have that time back, but unfortunately I can't. And then moving forward, I would like to see us have a much more structured and planned approach based on strategy as well as within the department as well as the town. So part of that as we move forward with recreation strategic planning, I think that's part of it is, as you mentioned, best use of our facilities as well as revenue generation. And I don't think this project initially did either of those. And I think we're stepping back from it and accomplishing what we need to do, which is getting down to business for the department.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'll hop in here. With regards to our strategic plan, yes, we do have a strategic plan. It does get reviewed annually, obviously with some changes in administration. We're behind on the latest review that needs to be completed. But it does say the area of focus is to recognize the value of our recreation amenities. And so our strategic plan, to me, it says that we need to review the recreation master plan as you speak of, so that we need a clear direction moving forward. We need to ensure adequate capital funding is in place for recreation infrastructure. We need to promote the use of our athletic amenities. And then obviously this was before the splash park had come in, because this is the original document that we had. So to me and the rest of council, we do need to review the strategic plan, because it doesn't have in our current plan a business focus on that. It says to promote our use of our athletic amenities. Now, I was not on board with the offices in the first place. I didn't think it made sense given our current level of usage, and especially after some of the proposals for potentially having a franchise or something else in that building, another vendor in there. Right now, I don't think is the time. I do like administration's creativity that we can use the items that have been purchased and unable to be returned in a way that makes them not obsolete. So appreciate appreciate that there. And yeah, I appreciate the options. It's nice to have a choice. So thank you for that. Now, what motion do we require out of this? We're gonna need something. Counselor Adams?
I move that we use previously ordered materials that cannot be restocked and refunded to enclose the former front counter space and complete minor renovations to the MRC counter to be OHS compliant and user friendly for the staff at $20,000 or less.
That works. Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, can we call a quick recess, please? Yes, please.
Good evening, your worship and council. This request for decision is in regards to adding a procedure for our surplus asset disposal policy. This is meant to create more transparency with administration and achieve good in regards to our strategic alignment for good governance and better communication. Just some background at the December 10th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting, Council made a motion to approve the new and updated Town of Slave Lake policies. Among them was the Town of Slave Lake Disposal Policy, ADM.GEN 24.1009. But as a condition for that approval, Council requested that administration create a policy that outlines how the process in which administration selects the method in which surplus items are disposed. So in order, given that, administration was able to produce, borrow ideas and for disposal policies and copy those found in other municipalities and trying to adapt them so to meet with our needs here in Slave Lake. We've given the wide range of assets retained by the town, these procedures divides all surplus into 4 categories: vehicles and heavy equipment, land, miscellaneous items procured for $999 or less, and miscellaneous items procured for $1,000 or more. When an item is declared a surplus under the disposal policy, the disposal process would follow the procedures for the category and for the item for which the item would fall under. And the authority for declaring the item as surplus and for selecting which method of disposal to use would still be based on the value in which the item was procured and the department of origin in which the item as mentioned in the disposal policy. So just to alleviate any concerns, the procedure does not contradict anything already written in the disposal policy. It complements it and just gives a more clarity for whether it's department director, the CAO, or council to make a decision in regards to how to dispose of a particular asset. This is just kind of meant to complement the policy that we already have and just kind of outline what the process is. The options before council is to accept this report as information. And again, it's complements the aforementioned policy, and these procedures will be included in the disposal policy in the town's policy library that's found on the website. And the recommendation to council is to accept report as information. Yes.
So just to dumb it down, I guess, for this, you're saying if it's less than $1,000, it's not going to a third party. We handle it ourselves. No member of or relation of any employee of the town of Slave Lake has any authority or can't buy it. If it's greater than 1,000, it goes to a third party for auction or whatever other method. Is that how I understand this?
It would depend on the good and on the discretion of the relevant authority. So in this case would be the director. But if they I think for items that are procured for $1,000 or less, it would probably, I mean, again, it depends on what the decision is, but it might be left just to, because it might not be worth selling it, or just because I don't think there'd be an adequate return based on what it was purchased for. Like a used desk chair or something like that. Just because if there's not adequate return, it might just be donated or disposed of according to applicable laws. So again, I'm not sure, this kind of outlines the, I mean, if it is donated to a third party, then yes, it would, if it were donated to a third party, then to answer your question, then yes, town members of the community that are town employees or council members would have access to it, yes.
Let me just clarify what I was asking, I guess. At what point do you determine that an employee of the town of Slave Lake or a relation is allowed to buy something that the town is disposing of?
If it's been set aside to a third party, then a town employee can, for auction at a third party, then yes, a town employee or a member of council can purchase it. It's not affiliated with the town because that's outside of our control.
At what point okay, I sound like I'm a broken record here. I'm sorry, not meaning to be adversarial here, but so then at $1,000, that's when it goes to third party. That's the procedure.
Yeah, so if the item is deemed to be worth more than $1,000 and it can't be utilized inside another department,
Right.
or then it would go to a third party sale, auction or otherwise, and then anybody would have the ability to purchase that. What we're trying to get away from is something that's let go from the town without a mediator out on the side to facilitate that sale to somebody within the organization.
I move to accept the procedure as information.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The purpose of this report is to provide options to Council for the remaining 18 lots in the Fournier Place along the west boundary. So previously, zoning of the 18 lots along the west boundary was changed from residential planned small lot district, which is RPSL, to high density residential district, which is R3, to allow town housing development. Additionally, a capital budget of 75,000 was allocated for detailed design work. Motion to award the design RFP to a consultant was made in the second week of January this year. However, until now, no contract was executed, making it feasible to reverse the decision if needed. As of today, no expenditures have been made from the allocated capital budget. However, the plan is now being reassessed to explore alternative development options for the lots along the west boundary. So town administration, along with planning and development, came up with the following proposed approach for the sale of 18 lots. So to proceed with lot sales in bundle of 3, so we can move forward with selling 18 lots instead of 3s, requiring buyers to purchase a bundle and develop them in accordance with designated R3 zoning regulations. Pricing would remain consistent with previous sales at $10,000 per lot, making each bundle $30,000. There are two potential sales methods, so we can stick with the previous approach, which is first come, first served. And then the second alternative sale method could be a lottery system or an auction for allocation. The other option is we can revert zoning to RPSL. If selling the lots in bundle of 3 proves challenging, then we can revert the zoning, allowing for individual lot sales. The next option is we can hold the lots for future consideration, which means we can retain the inventory and allow future council to determine the best course of action. This approach would also provide an opportunity to assess the demand for development in quarter 2 and 3, especially given the strong interest seen in previous phases of lot sales. Last option is proceed with RFP to attract developer. So we could issue an RFP to attract a single developer to build on all 18 lots in accordance with R3 zoning regulations. However, if the intent is to develop apartments or condominiums, a zoning change would be required, which could invite legal challenges due to restrictive covenants in place for this subdivision. Just a quick overview from the previous lot sale phases. So we have held 4 lot sale phases to date, of which 63 lots were sold as a part of those phases. A total of 93 public expression of interest were made, out of which 45 were successful through the sale process, and the rest 48 either declined to proceed did not respond to emails or withdrew after selecting their lots. There is currently 20 individuals on wait list. So council may also consider prioritizing the 20 individuals on the wait list if moving forward with the sale of the remaining 18 lots. So council has few options. So proceed with lot sale in bundle of 3 on first come first serve basis, or proceed with lot sales in bundle of 3 using alternative sale method. Proceed with reversing the zoning to RPSL and selling the lots similar to previous phases on a first come first basis. Hold the inventory for future council to decide, or proceed with RFP to attract a single developer to build on all 18 lots within the R3 zoning regulations. The unexpended funding that was provided for design for $75,000 will be allocated back to the original funding source. No matter what the development happens, we will make sure design guidelines are followed. Administration recommends the following. So first, direct is to not proceed with design development by rescinding motion numbers 07-2025. And then the second motion is now that the zoning is R3, to proceed with the sale of remaining lots in bundle of 3, starting with 20 individuals on the wait list on a first come first served basis. Questions?
Under option D, you're saying we have to do a rezone. Why? It's already in R3.
But for apartment and condominium is not based on the restrictive covenant, right? It's
R3A.
Oh, yes, R3A is what allows apartment and condominiums, which would be considered as a high, what's it called?
R3A is the zoning that allows for apartments and condominiums, not R3. So R3 allows 3-plexes, 4-plexes, anything above duplexes, but not apartment buildings. So if a developer came in and said they wanted to develop an apartment building there, we would have to look at if you guys even wanted to accommodate that, the first step.
So an 18-unit row house is applicable.
Row housing is in R3, but not R3A.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just how they divided up those two zones.
That's under the current bylaw or
Current land use bylaw, not the one
what's the
that's being
proposed?
They would be combined. R3 is a combined
Okay.
zone. Yeah. We have
So
to work on our
this is-
use bylaw.
This is where I'm getting frustrated with this piece is we know that our districting is being combined. We're making things simpler, yet we're still making decisions based on what our current zoning is. And
Because anything
that
that,
facility over there, I think we need to seriously look at our initial intent of having high density down that stretch because it fits for that area. It provides housing and we may even be able to get that RFP coming in from a third party when they can see they can get 18 lots for $180,000 in order to do a development, which basically for the size of that land is what, 80% off? And that helps with moving forward on their development. So my take on this is more along the lines of option D and whether or not that means we need to do a rezoning. I don't think we do that right away. I think we put it out for request for proposal and see what businesses or if any developers are interested in doing, whether it's a condominium, whether it's row housing. And if this, by the time we get that back and this comes back to the table, we've already combined R3 and R3A, well, then that's done too.
yeah, and just like for clarity's sake, we have to work with our current land use bylaw, even though we do know that is a proposed change. And I'm highlighting proposed because the proposed land use bylaw has not gone for public consultation yet. So we also have to maintain on our current.
I understand that if we're making this decision and it was going to start getting built on tomorrow, but let's be real, this isn't going to start being built on tomorrow. So I'd rather not make the decision to change another zoning again, to go through that whole process when we don't even know if somebody would want to build an apartment or a condominium there, or if they want to go with row housing. And row housing could be in a condominium style.
We agree and recognize that, but what we're saying is if someone came in and bought it.
Yeah.
And they wanted to start construction in March a
Zoning
zoning
change.
change would have to happen. So it's something that
Okay.
needs to
Yep,
be
fair enough.
considered.
Thank you.
Demand for the Fournier Place lots, knowing the history of the past 2 years of trying to get a larger developer to build on multiples, and multiple options within Fournier Place has been incredibly challenging. We have had numerous conversations with a variety of developers, and all of the land at that time, all of the lots were available at that time, including this section that was proposed to be for townhouses, or row housing. So in my opinion, I think we need to do first come, first serve. Obviously, there's a wait list. People that were on the wait list initially may no longer be interested in row housing, but they were of interest, so may as well reach out to them first. And I would like to see it go that way. I think there are multiple challenges to building in our region. A lot of them has to do with costs. And yeah, I think I would like to see it go that way. I think it seems more fair, and knowing how we have gone around with our interactions with large developers, it has been challenging. And when you have Morinville and Spruce Grove and Stony Plain and Sherwood Park putting up all the developments, that's where the majority of them are. I think we're going to see a lot more traction selling these in sets of 3 when it is something that a local builder or someone, perhaps a northern local builder, I know we don't have a ton of builders right now, but a northern local builder might be able to handle versus on taking on that whole project. I do love this option as well, because it does save that 75,000 in capital that we had allocated for this, that I personally don't think makes sense anymore. Councillor Choba.
First of all, I have a question. So if we were to go with we proceeded with lot sales in bundles of 3, and we saw that that wasn't feasible, it'll have to come back again for us to revert zoning, correct? If we said we wanted to kind of break it off and sell individually, like we did the first lots.
If you wanted to break them off and sell them individually, like you did the first 4 phases, yes, it would have to come back and be rezoned, likely to RPSLs.
And these lots were different, if I'm correct, than the remainder of lots because they're very narrow. Like these are very narrow. The 18 individual lots were very
They're
narrow.
the same size as the ones that run along 6th Ave there in the
Yeah.
southwest. So, but they were RPSL as well as the ones along 6th.
Mm.
So same size, same type of development. That's why I say if they weren't successful selling in lots of 3, it would likely come back as an RPSL
Right.
amendment. And the design guidelines do not restrict or fetter council's discretion for land use bylaw changes.
Okay, because I mean, when I read this, I can see that there's 20 individuals who are in our community who are on a wait list. And I think if we're looking at getting these properties or this land sold, and there's 20 individuals on our wait list already, I would definitely support something that gives those individual opportunity to buy, just because I know that there's been lots of feedback around individuals in the community on their preference of trying to get one of those pieces of land. I would definitely support anything that would give back to those individuals on the wait list. So I'm looking at B, but I'm also comfortable with A as well.
Councillor Adams.
I don't think that A would necessarily open it up to individuals. I feel that's going to still be more of your developer that's going in and building a 3 or 4-plex unit that these are now zoned for. To address the 20 individuals, I think you're more in line with what you were saying on B. I am still more in favor for D, mainly because I think we need to give a chance to get that out there. Mayor Ward, you had said, yes, you had said earlier that we've tried this path before. We did try this path with the developer, but that was when it was zoned RPSL. It was not as an R3 or an R3A. I think it's worth reaching out to these the contacts we've made from this past chance to see if there is an interest in an R3 or an R3A development going in 18 lots as opposed to individual building, and there may be economy of scale there for them. It would also increase the density as opposed to doing option B, which would be one on each lot. And that would help us not only address our housing issue, but also increase your the tax base per linear foot. I think D warrants effort going down that path to see what's there, and failing that, we look at the other options.
I'll jump in there on a couple of things. When we did reach out to previous developers, the intention was pending approval from council, and public hearing was to always have townhouses there. And the developers that we were talking to were aware of that. We're aware that the zoning wasn't completed yet, but that was the path that many, many reports went down. You were just talking about the fact that we need to increase density, but council defeated the motion to have duplexes on larger lots in there. So I feel like that decision and this are in direct conflict with each other. I want to see local developers, and I do agree, you're probably not going to have an individual buy bundles of 3. You may have more local developers do that. And if that fails, I would be comfortable with moving to the RPSL. I think we have put out there that Slave Lake is open for development. We have no current development deposits. Our development fees are 0, I believe, currently. Yep. And so we have no development fees. We have no development permits. We have indicated we are open for business. We have multiple, we tried to sell multiple lots in Fournier Place and no large developers came through. So I think regardless of that, I don't think the economies of scale, especially with the workforce, are what's going to work right now. But that's my opinion. So I just keep repeating myself. Councilor Groundhog.
I agree with Mayor Ward, and then we're also kind of shooting ourselves in the foot when the council purchased land to build apartments and such on. And then if we're gonna do something with high density there, well, now we have land that we're not moving forward, and I don't know if we are or not anymore anyway, but we're kind of going in circles, contradicting past votes and decisions, especially with the high density in there, because that was a council meeting that brought a lot of stuff out, and that was the decision made at the time, and that was a big no-fly zone. We didn't want to change that area and have a bunch of high density stuff, and the people from that area came in and didn't want it either. So to go back to that and go through this whole process again, I mean, if everyone's in the same mindset as they were last time when you guys all voted that way, which I didn't, you would vote no on it now again. I don't know what's changed over a 2-month period.
Councilor Adams.
To your comment about R2 zoning, that is not in contradiction to this. That has nothing to do with this. It had to do with R2 putting a duplex on a corner unit surrounded by R1s. That's not an entire section that's R3, which was the first one passed. As far as the public there, that lived there, when they did come here, they were okay with the entire side going to an R3. What they were against was the R2 being interspersed with their R1s. Now, that being said, it doesn't really matter. My question would be to the rest of council is, why does it hurt for us to simply ask if there are put a request for proposal out on an R3 development, which honestly would be a bigger win for our town and the community members than it would be to do this. If failing that and we don't get any traction in it, absolutely, we got to do something to continue that development.
Councilor Hughes.
I've just been listening to all of your arguments, super appreciate all of your feedback on this while I've been pondering. It's so frustrating to me because I think we've been trying so hard for so long to get something going in Fournier, and this is just kind of another crossroads, and obviously wanting to make sure that we make the right decision here. I find myself torn between a couple of the points that you're making. I think what might help me is trying to identify like a timeline for this, for instance, right? If we do the RFP to attract a developer, what kind of time frame are we looking for before we would know, say, hey, yeah, that worked. Do we give it a 3-month window? Like, I would love some sort of feedback on that part of things, if anyone wants to weigh in.
Well, and I will comment on the second part of, I'll piggyback on that question. So,
Okay.
Or I guess, and my answer to Counselor Adams' question is, what does it hurt? What hurts is the fact that we have been trying to do this for 4 years.
Yeah.
We have 8 months left in our term. Our town needs development and it needs development quickly. And if we were going to go this whole townhouse route, which we have, and if we were going to seek that, we've all known the options for multiple months, for a year of what we could do there. And so a year ago, we should have approached developers to do that. This should have moved along so much faster. I personally think government moves too slowly in a lot of cases, and not to rush decisions, but I think we move too quickly, or too slowly, should I say, for a small town. I do not believe there is a harm in putting this up for sale to see if people will buy in the 3-lot chunks, as we did the redistricting for. They'll buy in the 3-lot chunks. If within 2 weeks there isn't enough interest, fantastic. Let's move on to another option. Those other lots had a wait list within days that far surpassed the quantity. So why not give it to our residents first versus a larger developer that is not from here? Why not give that option first? That's the answer to that question. You may not agree with it, but that is where I fall
But
with that.
still, in terms of a time frame, I guess, like, let's say if we're looking at the RFP route to attract a developer, what kind of time frame are we looking at? Are we looking at another 6 months until maybe they say, yeah, we'll buy a couple lots? Like, I think I'm just wanting to try to identify that, because that's a huge factor for me here on this decision, right? Is actual time frame to get something moving. I don't know.
Time frame depends, right? You can be 4 weeks, or you can be like, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, depends on how much time you want to allow for a submission, right? I mean, like, if you want to gauge interest,
What's standard time frame that you would suggest in this case? Then
usually between 3 and 4 weeks.
3 to 4 weeks? Okay.
Yeah, because if there is an interest, then they should jump on it right away, right? But there is also like, fine, you get a developer in, but how are you going to put some clauses in a way that, hey, you have to do development within so much period of time? That would be a difficult challenge.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and to that point regarding developers, a lot of them did not like the restrictive covenant that we already have in place. And we all know we're not going to go down that path. That's going to be legal. That's going to cause major delays as well. So like, that's a great perspective on that point as well. I think at this point in time, I would be leaning towards the lot sales and bundles of 3 and open that up to our local people and the wait list. I think that's where I would be leaning. I'd love to see, movement in that right away, and kind of a signal from administration that, yes, people are open to that idea and we have some movement. If we don't have movement, then I want us to explore some of these other options as soon as possible. But I think that's how I would be leaning at the current time. And I have no interest in rezoning it. I definitely would like to keep it as the R3, as the intentional kind of planning that we did have.
Counselor Chova?
Correct me if I'm wrong, there was a developer who bought a couple of lots already at first, correct?
There are a few, we
Right.
can't release the names. There are a few developers
Right,
that
right,
have purchased
right.
multiple lots, yes.
And so I think for me, if we're thinking about timeline and we think about interest, I think we're doing a disservice to the 20 individuals on our list right now who are community members who are saying that they're ready to buy. And, we have to give them the same kind of benefit of the doubt like we would give a developer, that they're also ready to build. And so if we're all concerned about, hoping that, it will help reduce the housing crisis that we're already seeing in our community, then I think opening it up to these 20 individuals who are on the wait list will be more beneficial to our community than going through that RFP. And I understand that the RFP could potentially be a good idea, but I think in this scenario, because we have individuals who have shown that interest, I think community members getting those lots or getting the opportunity to buy those it will be a very good thing, not just for our community, but also for the fact that that's money coming to the town, and also giving them that opportunity to own their first home. Who knows the variety of individuals who are ready to buy. Some of them might be looking at an opportunity to own their first home. We know what the crisis looks like in terms of trying to get a home right now or trying to afford something, right? So I think for those 20 individuals, I definitely support reverting the zone to RPSL so that they can maybe be sold individually or offer at least get that chance to.
Counselor Adams.
Have the individuals of 20 been contacted to see if they're still interested, or is this just no number?
No, this is like based on the end of the fourth lot sales.
So last year?
Like, no, this was,
Right,
whenever it
January?
was done, like whenever it was concluded. That's when there were 20 individuals that had reached out, expressed interest, saying that they would like to purchase lot in Fournier Place.
Counselor Adams.
I guess honestly, I don't think it hurts to wait the month to try the RPSL. That failing, I don't think it makes sense to open them up into R3s as individual threeplexes, fourplexes, have whatever you have there. In which case I'd be more in favor of reverting to the zoning to an RPSL then and going back to a individual zoning with 18 homes going there, where we're going to see the benefit to the individual, much as the argument of Councillor Troba has said. Doing it in lots of 3 is again for developers. So in which case I would rather see us go down the path of B, which is doing all 18 lots and a request for proposal. Hang on, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just I think I'm just trying to clarify where everyone's at. Okay, so you two are saying B now, that you want to revert to zoning to RPSL. If we're not going to do the RFP, you're both with B.
I still think we should be doing the RFP. I feel that should be the first motion, whether it gets defeated or carried. Failing that, then we go to B, and failing that, then we go to the other one.
And you don't think that, like to Mayor Ward's point, that there could be more smaller scale Northern Alberta local developers that aren't going to go for the bundle of 3? That's your thought process there?
My thought process is not along having, what would that be? 6 fourplexes? Is that the intent?
6 threeplexes and just.
You want to do a 3-plex? Then why are we bothering? We should just leave it as individual then.
Just to clarify, if you go bundles of 3, you got to make sure that you're selling bundles of 3 all the way down the line. There's no
Yeah, you
switching
can't
after
split 'em.
to remain continuity of the development. So.
Okay.
Something that I obviously didn't do the math correctly. So it's the same as having 18 individuals. You're not getting any more homes.
No.
So
Just to clarify, it's because development of townhouses and row housing
Cheaper.
can be a little bit cheaper
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
individual development. And that's why the row housing higher density was being proposed as per the market study that was done by Nichols Management Group.
But even for that,
Will
doing
be
in groups
more
of 3,
affordable. Single home.
Go back to pens, please.
Yeah.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah.
Counselor Adams.
even groups of 3, I mean, you take the development even over in Aspen. That is not in groups of 3, and that is considered a small one. So to go
4.
in groups of 3, I don't think is that just for the sake of division?
Yeah, that was why we did it, but we could change it to groups of 6, like it.
I just think it's worthwhile taking a month to do this. Should we have taken a month before? Yes. I'm for that. But to just make that decision here for the sake of being quick and just to make a decision, I think is a mistake.
Counselor Hughes.
I'm good.
Okay. Counselor Adams.
I'd like to, I guess, start with the first motion. Move that council directs administration to not proceed with design development by rescinding motion 07-2025.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? And that is carried. Counselor Adams.
I'd like to move that council directs administration to proceed with the option. Sorry, I'm going to go with D, to proceed with the RFP to attract a developer for all 18 lots.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any further Councillor Gramlich.
There's yeah, I don't know if I want to wait for a developer. I like Councillor Achoba's idea. If we could put 18 up for 20 individuals, they should sell immediately. Like, if they're ready to go, there'd be a little bit different of a home than that they could have built, because they're a little narrower and stuff, but there's already a handful of those in there, right? With the same guidelines they could look at. Like
Currently.
I know that's not what your motion was, but I'm kind of reverting back to another option that was in there. So I'm more aligned with Councillor Achoba on this than going to a developer.
And to be rezoned?
What would be, so what Councillor Gramlich is saying, yes, to rezone to the RPSL and do the individual lots. And I will also continue as I'm rambling on here. That was my initial preference as well, once we put the pin for the moment in the $75,000 plans. I know we did go the route with R3, but plans change, administration changes. And there was such high demand for there that I don't believe that Councillor Achoba is wrong in this, in giving individuals the ability to have those. My understanding there's change in path for administration if that's what we do go with regards to this and the rezoning and the back and forth. But I do agree on that. And I mean, I hope that we see development plans and development permits in and people aren't going to be sitting on these lots because of the unique opportunity, but the demand was high. And I personally, I mean, I would also be okay with that option as well. I'm not okay with a large RFP, but either the 3-lot bundles or the RPSL, I could get behind on either of those. So there's a motion on the floor. Councillor Adams.
Okay, to kind of defend my motion. I think that if we take the 3 weeks to put this RFP out to see if it's there, I don't think impacts the future development of that area. There is nothing, if we sold these tomorrow, that's going to be built in 3 weeks. It's not going to impact it for the timeline. This is February. So for us to do our due diligence, try and get an RFP in, and failing the RFP, this comes back at the end of March or April 1st, and then we put them up and make a decision from there. I think it makes sense.
Councillor Gramlich.
The process isn't that big of a deal. Yeah, we should have done it earlier, but we didn't. I get that. But the process aside, the original premise was to help individuals and get some new Slave Lake people to be able to buy homes and stuff. And this gives 18 of those 20 an option if they still want it, right? So I still kind of stick with Councillor Achoba's idea, even though like the month doesn't bother me as much as some, but that's not why I'm gonna want it. It's because I don't want one developer to build the apartment to rent to whoever they want. I want to give other people an opportunity to purchase something and own their own home.
Councillor Adams.
It's not saying the development's going to go to an apartment building.
No, but
this is simply a request, because if I understand correctly, the lot sizes we have for 18 lots, if we're building right across from zone to zone, you can fit more than 18 in there and still be valid. Whether now I get there's going to be issues in that within the zoning with how that is built. But even if you combined all 18 lots into one and you did a condominium build out all the way across, you still have individuals owning homes. You still have individuals having, and we'd have more than 18 units. The design standard could be different. It could be or not the overall design, like the look of it. I mean, the density of it. There's options that are there, and we're just deciding to throw those away without even looking at them. I think is a mistake. I think we should entertain this by delaying the decision to go to an RPSL for 3 weeks. I don't think impacts the development.
And I will keep it brief because we've all said the same points repeatedly. I agree. I came into this a bit differently, thinking about the 3 lots and selling them in chunks. But I did mention the timeline. I was the one that mentioned that. However, I think it's actually smarter. And I think it is actually more community minded to go with the 18 individual lot sales, to give people a chance to build a home more affordably. And I think it's more about, for me, at this point, and I'll call the vote after this, it is more about the now, how we're helping people or how we're getting people into their first homes versus really anything else, timeline, et cetera. So that is where I stand. So there is a motion on the floor. So is there any further discussion on that? Counselor Adams.
You seem to be saying that the only way to make this affordable for people is to allow them to build an individual home. That's not the intent of going out for this RFP. The intent of the RFP is to increase that density and reduce the cost, which makes the home even more affordable for people to get in. It doesn't stop individuals from being able to own their first property for a set amount of money. If anything, it's going to be less than doing an individual home. To just assume
that logic.
To just assume that the individual of 18 is going to be less expensive than a row housing project of more, you should fit more, but even if it's not, if it's only 18, how is it cheaper?
What I'm saying is if myself went to go purchase my first home and I can buy one lot for 10,000 or three and build a townhome, 3 row housing for 30,000, and the cost of that, it is cheaper. I'm talking about an individual family going into a home. And as we've identified, there's 18 lots, which would be 18 individual homes. The density isn't increasing unless you want to do like a condo or an apartment building or something of that sort, which I personally don't believe it's that neighborhood. So I think it makes most sense to give individual families the ability to perhaps at a lower cost of land, build their own home, because that is ultimately what it is. And we're still getting homes into place and the demand is there. So for me, the decision, and we'll call the vote now, but the decision there is we have 18 lots that likely will be sold almost immediately and we can get people moving along. So is there any further discussion on that? Okay, so Steve's motion. It was option proceed with the RFP to attract the developer. Okay, motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? All those opposed? And that is defeated. Councillor Chilpa.
I'd like to make a motion to proceed with reversing the zoning to RPS.
That's already done. Reversing the zoning.
Reverting zoning to RPSL.
Right, and selling the lots similar to, previous phase on a first come, first served basis.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Councillor Adams and then Councillor Hughes.
Should we be going down the same path as last time when a first come, first served? Was that the best way, or should we go to a lottery system?
Councillor Bramley.
Well, I think out of the fundamentals, however it went, I think we have to contact those 20 people that are on the wait list. And I was gonna ask a question about that though.
Fair enough.
In the big, when we had all the lots, they were able to buy bundles of 4. Is that
Bundles of 5. And
bundles of
I think
5?
that needs to be changed.
Like this, we
Yeah.
should make this so they could each buy one, not so 4 people could buy, because that defeats the purpose of what we're at. Is that possible?
Yeah, I believe in phase 4, it was 1 lot per purchaser in phase 4. They didn't allow
Was the
Okay.
larger
purchase more
lots.
than 1 for those larger lots. So we could do the same premise here where
Perfect.
you can purchase 1 lot, no more multiples.
Yeah, I would be same
So
mindset
just
there.
for clarity on this then, so we'd be doing 1 lot per purchaser, but we would be starting with the 20 individuals on the current wait list?
That is correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
I'm talking. So then Councillor Adams, hypothetically, they all don't sell, because maybe they don't. What's your suggestion of a lottery? Because if there's 5 left or whatever, like, give me your,
I think we got to pick a direction and just go with it. You can't do it.
but if they all don't sell, then when they come
It's
back.
first come, whoever shows up,
Okay,
first come, first served.
Open it
If
up
that's what we're
to
doing.
public. I think first come, first serve makes sense with appropriate communication strategy. But I do think we need to contact the wait list first
Yeah.
because that,
Half a limited one.
so there is a motion on the floor. It counts.
So just to clarify, if the first 20, they don't all sell, it'd be a first come, first serve.
This is what Andrew's, after communication that they will be going up for sale. And they'll be sold individually.
Right?
Yes,
We'll draft something.
yes. Okay. Any further discussion on this? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you. On what was the most lively debate in a while, so greatly appreciated. Does anyone, do we require a 5-minute recess before starting budget?
Yeah, it's gonna take a while.
If we can have a 5-minute recess, please. Thank you. My favorite time of year, budget.
All right. Good evening, your worship and members of council. The purpose of tonight's report is to present to council the 2025 operating and capital budgets. For the background there, I've just outlaid the sections of the MGA that states that an operating and capital budget must be passed each calendar year. So what exactly is a budget? Just for those who may not be in the know, a budget is the town's operational plan and priorities expressed in dollars and cents. It's a supporting document to outlay the revenues and expenses needed in order to achieve the town's strategic goals. The operating budget focuses on daily expenses covering municipal services such as fire, snow, road repairs, arena, pools, and parks. And the capital budget covers capital items like buildings, roads, and equipment. For the 2025 operating budget, the theme that we had this year is basically hold the line on spending while ensuring that residents continue to receive the services that they depend on. By identifying cost-saving opportunities, streamlining operations, and prioritizing essential services, the town is balancing fiscal restraint with community needs. Rising costs in key areas such as policing and inflationary pressures have been offset through reductions in fuel, utilities, and administrative expenses. While revenues have shifted due to program changes, careful financial planning ensures that service levels remain stable. This budget reflects a focused approach on protecting our core services, finding efficiencies, and keeping costs in check for the future. Some of the highlights for the budget are as follows. So we have a $353,000 increase in user fees and sales of goods. The bulk of this revenue is coming through fire services through its enhanced revenue generating potential by leveraging existing staff and resources to offer additional services, resulting in approximately $200,000 in increased service fees. Additionally, water revenues are basically make up the remaining part of the $100,000. And those are just reflective of increased efficiency within the water billing services, capturing more revenue through the water that's been pumped. Interest, just a small decrease there. So interest rates are on the decline for where they have been. So just a slight lower interest anticipated by about $15,000. So there's a big decrease in government transfers for operating. However, at the end of the day, there's really no bottom line impact, as the biggest decrease here just reflects the closure of the homeless shelter and the grant that was budgeted for in 2024, resulting in $1 million less in government transfers for operating. Again, this is offset because there won't be $1,080,000 in expenses to run the shelter. The remaining adjustments in funding come from intermunicipal transfers from the MD of Lesser Slave River for the fire services and intermunicipal agreements. Fines and costs, we also see a large decrease here as well of $300,000. Again, for this, there's no real operating impact. There's a slight capital impact due to less reserve transfers, and the $300,000 reflects the decrease in the photo radar program. Again, so additionally, we usually have $300,000 in revenue, $200,000 in expenses, with net proceeds of $100,000 going into reserves for park improvements. Rental income, slight increase of $31,000 for the year. And this is just a reflection of the programming at the pool and MRC facilities that have seen additional programs and additional facility uses generating some additional income. Other revenue, again, there's a significant decrease here. However, this is just reflective that in 2024, we had budgeted for a one-time sale of the streetlights to ATCO that's no longer present. And so the revenue is kind of back into where it was before previous years, but it does show a $685,000 decrease. On the expenditure side, we have an overall reduction in personnel costs of $185,000. Overall here, the homeless shelter is reflected in here, so that is a significant chunk of the overall reduction. We did add one we did add one FTE to the water and wastewater services for an admin position. Part of our budgetary process in 2025 to find some savings was to budget for a council of 5 for 10 months and then a full council of 7. So that did produce some savings for the year. Also included in the personnel costs were wage grade adjustments for the town to keep our commitment to remaining competitive and an attractive employer, ensuring high quality service delivery for residents. Contracted and general services. Again, some of the big themes on some of these big ones is the homeless shelter, so I won't really go over that. Additional cost savings that we did find in 2025 was a reduction in the economic development program, along with further cuts across all departments and contracted and general services, mainly in the areas of travel and training and supplies. Specific reductions include $18,000 in employee recruitment costs, $50,000 in contracted services for corporate services. One-time adjustments for equipment for fire services reduced their cost by $35,000, as well as an additional reduction for planning and development plans at a reduction of $30,000. Despite these savings, the largest cost increases for the town came from rising RCMP costs, which will add $170,000 to the town's budget. And a one-time expense of $25,000 has been allocated for the 2025 election. Material supplies and utilities, there was a reduction of $360,000. So some of these, again, are the homeless shelter. However, we have made some strategic adjustments to our power and gas productions, driven by new pricing through our updated contracts. Some of the other noticeable reductions come through the MRC, where we did introduce the cold water generation system for ice service creation. That has an estimated cost reduction in power usage by about $75,000, showcasing the benefits of the energy efficient innovation that we introduced over there. Further savings have been achieved through a $60,000 reduction in fuel costs, as well as streamlining spending on materials and supplies across multiple departments. Transfers to individuals and organizations. So we have an increase there of $133,000. Most notable increases include $65,000 in additional funding for the Slave Lake Airport service, $30,000 for the library, and $25,000 in continued support for the Wildfire Legacy Center. Debenture interest, we have a $127,000 reduction. While this is no real cost saving, this just shows that there's a shift that our loans are getting further to the end of their term, and the payments that we're making are now being shifted towards more of a principal payment reduction versus paying off interest costs. For the net reserve transfer, there's a reduction of $775,000 year over year. As previously stated, the biggest chunk in reduction in reserves transfers here just reflects the $685,000 from the sale of the ATCO streetlights. The other reduction here is the discontinued photo radar program of another $100,000. Despite these reductions, we still have increased slightly our contributions to fire services and community services to help those departments out in their future projects. So overall, the net impact for the 2025 operating budget, we strived and achieved a 0% increase to the taxes required in 2025. This was achieved through a mix of cost cutting and reserve funding. As a result, the average household should see no increase in the municipal portion of its property tax bill, and most of the changes to the 2025 tax bill will solely reflect any school requisition adjustments made by the province. So those are shown on our tax bill. The town has no say. We don't get to dictate that. The province tells us the rates. And so sometimes that get lumped in. People get confused on that. And just as a note on the 0% increase, some households will see a little bit up and some will see a little bit down. And that's strictly just due to assessment changes that happen year over year. So on average, no one will see an increase, but there will be minute details in everyone's tax bill just due to the assessment changes that happen. For the capital budget in 2025, there was a total of 56 capital projects presented to council for consideration. Council accepted 38 of the projects presented and rejected 18. There are 34 newly identified projects and two projects carried forward from the previous year and 2 annual ongoing projects. Funding for projects will amount to $7.3 million. Carry forward projects and annual projects will require $460,000 in funding. The total funding required, oh, sorry, that's a typo there. For 2025 is $7.7 million. Funding sources include $5.4 million from reserves, $578,000 from external sources, and grant funding of $1.7 million. For some of the major projects that we have on the go for 2025, the biggest one that we do have here is a street reconstruction on 14th Avenue Southeast between 5th Street and 12th Street at $3.2 million. So this one has been on our capital plan for quite a while. It initiated in 2018. And now we are taking that project on to get it done. The second biggest project that we have is a $3.1 million ladder truck. So this again has been on our budget in previous years, just due to timing and sourcing parts. It originally came in at about $1.5 million a couple of years ago. The price of the parts and getting that ladder truck in here now is approximately $3.1 million. This is a crucial piece of equipment for the fire service. And so our plans are to order the unit in 2025 with an expected delivery date anywhere between the end of 2025 or potentially into 2026. Moving down the line, we have a $1.5 million water replacement. And that's located between 6th Street Southeast, between 10th Ave Southeast and 11th Ave Southeast. This will include replacing the iron ductile pipe in there with a new pipe to address some of the breaking issues that we're having right now. Next on the list, we do have another $1 million project for the fire services for another fire engine. So currently the existing fire engine is beyond its replacement, which we try to aim at every 15 years. We are moving to a new strategy to replace one engine every 10 years to maintain a 20-year life cycle for each unit to keep our fleet in good working order. Some of the other projects here that I've lumped up. So we have $345,000 in road and sidewalk improvements. One big improvement that we do have is the critical intersection identified for improvements is the intersection at Main Street and 6th Street Northwest, which we'll be taking a look at and hopefully upgrading that intersection to address concerns of safety, accessibility, putting pair ramps, making it easier for all those crossing that intersection so that there's an easier time. Over at the MRC, we have $390,000 worth of improvements slated for our MRC. The biggest key focus of the MRC this year is internet and Wi-Fi. So we'll have about $100,000 invested to expand coverage, boost speed, and increase capacity at our MRC. Just due to all the people visiting the events, it's time to kind of bring the internet over there up to a 2025 level and get off of our dial-up speed and hopefully assist with all the large events that we kind of seem to be having over there, assisting with our markets and just making it a more attractive venue for everybody visiting the facility. For parks and trail improvements, we have about $460,000 that will be pumped mainly into Hill to Eben Park, including paving the parking lot and installing trail lighting, improving accessibility and safety. And additionally, a new initiative that's in the budget, which is contingent on grant funding, We'll be planting and replacement of trees throughout all of our park spaces to enhance the beauty and sustainability of our green spaces. And so that initiative totals about $120,000, $60,000 of which would be coming from a grant and $60,000 from the town, so that we can get some of our trees back that we've lost over the years. For vehicle and equipment replacement, we have $422,000. And this is based on our equipment and vehicle fleet list. And so we'll be replacing essential vehicles. And then other notable projects we're having there, because I love the pool, is the diving board replacement. So I did go back. This is the, we will be replacing the original diving board fixture that was put in at the opening of the aquatic center. Just for fun, I went back and looked at the original diving board cost there, however many years ago that was. So the original diving board did cost the town about $7,000. So there has been some inflation over the years on our diving board costs for $30,000, but I've been told that this one has reached the end of its lifespan, and we'll see that replaced so that residents can continue enjoying that part of the pool. So all in all, the town's 2025 capital budget reflects investments in critical infrastructure, public safety, community amenities, with a total funding of $7.7 million. Our key projects includes major road and sidewalk improvements, fire service upgrades, and vital water line replacements to modernize our aging infrastructure. We have enhancements to our recreation facilities for Wi-Fi, park and trail improvements, and a new diving board for our aquatics center, which further demonstrates the town's commitment to quality of life initiatives. Additionally, the replacement of 5 fleet vehicles ensures continued operational efficiency. And so through a planning and mix of funding sources, we are paying for all of this through reserves, grants, and external contributions. The town is maintaining its essential services, improving safety, and supporting the renewal of our assets. And with that, I'm open to any questions.
I have a question, but first I'd like to thank you, Roland, and all the rest of the staff, as well as council, specifically Mayor Ward, for doing a deep dive into this. This was, in my 7 years on council, this was the most in-depth we've ever got, and it was refreshing and disappointing in other aspects, but we found some savings, and that's good. But I have a question. We're all on different committees, and I don't even know who's on waste. I don't remember a waste budget ever coming back to us for approval or anything. And where's that at? Who's on waste?
I will speak for the team. There's been some changes in personnel at the MD 124 with regards to their CFO, who also does the budget preparation for the Regional Waste Commission. So the Regional Waste Commission has 3 members of the town of Slave Lake and 3 members of the MD on it. Myself, Councillor Hughes, and Councillor Achoba sit on there currently. We were presented with a preliminary budget at the end of 2024 that was, I would say, unacceptable for our ratepayers and taxpayers. And as such, the commission has taken that back to continue work on. So currently, there was an interim budget passed that was a certain percentage of the previous year's budget to keep things moving along with the Waste Commission. But as right now, you are correct, there is no current budget that has been presented.
Okay, well then for you and you, the rest of, there's only 5 of us and 3 of us are on there. Me and Steve are off the hook. When you guys go back there, like, I'd hope you hold the line because we're passing a budget, right? So like, I don't know how, I don't want to take from unrestricted surplus when they say that we need $1 million here.
And so for garbage, we're actually situated very well. Over the years here, I've tried to build up our garbage surplus in anticipation of a new cell or those type of things. So we do have approximately, I want to say about $1.1 million, roughly around there, in our garbage reserve. So if there is any unanticipated costs, we're well situated to deal with that. Again, not really stated in the budget because we're still working out through some of the details. We do have a new program coming with our circular materials We're going to be reviewing the rates a little bit later than this year because this new program, basically what it does is when we sign up, they're going to take our garbage, our recyclables, and then they're actually going to give the town back some money. So the costs to the residents we're expecting on their utility bills after this program's up and running might actually be reduced. If there's some increased costs, we'll be able to offset that and maybe lower the rates later on in the year, but that should still fully be funded. And I think good things are coming from that. So we'll actually be getting curbside and our recycle depot almost about 80% funded through this new program, through circular material. So we do have some wiggle room.
Roland, you'll know this one, and I probably should. We're a little late passing this budget. What's the rule of thumb for like these committees to submit their budgets in time in order to fit it in? Do we have anything like that, or is it we've always just got them done on time?
For like waste and stuff?
Waste,
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I've never experienced where we don't have a budget like this far gone into it.
yeah, I mean, for the waste and stuff, I don't think I've ever really ran into where they weren't
Yeah.
fully prepared. Well, there has been a few years and I've always estimated kind of along the lines. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong, but I'll adjust that at the end of the year, right? Some of these projections here, again, while they're not, what's in this budget isn't always, we don't always hit that target mark. There's always a little bit of wiggle room here.
So I will jump in as to, so part of the delay is the fact that the current sitting councilors here on the commission, when presented with a multiple $100,000 increase in requisition from the town, said not at this time, and that we needed to do some more work on that. So that is part of the delay, is that we were uncomfortable with the nearly $400,000 increase presented and wanted to have more time spent, as that would be a significant tax increase. So we are going to go back to the drawing board. I believe there is a meeting coming up within the next couple of weeks here to review that budget and then bring that all back to everyone here.
And then the risk on that one's a little bit lower because unlike taxes, I can only set taxes once a year. Utility rates, we can adjust those should we need to.
We should, if everyone wants, but if you guys don't want, there's 3 or 5 anyway, but this should be something we maybe talk about at tri-council because it seems to be a little bit.
Yes, intermunicipal.
Yeah, sorry, intermunicipal.
Administration, can you just make a note perhaps for intermunicipal to talk about the waste commission budget? Just otherwise I will forget by the time we get there.
To the agenda.
Yeah.
Continuing.
No, that's good. I was just curious. I didn't.
Yep. Anyone else want to weigh in? Councillor Choba.
Mine's more of a comment and just basically thanking administration and council for working on this. It was lots of back and forth on our side and lots of digging deep into it. For me, my first time doing budgets, and I can understand the headaches around some of it, but also the passion around this table and where we sit. And so I'm, looking at this and looking at where we're hoping to go, I'm very comfortable with this.
Councillor Adams.
I guess more of a statement first, and then I'll get into a couple questions. First off, thanks for the effort on all of the town administration and everybody who's here within the town organization for the effort they've put forward on this one. And again, I'd like to also repeat what Councillor Gramlich said, is thanking Mayor Ward for the effort that went into this budget and corralling us and keeping us focused. I guess part of what I have a challenge with on this budget is as an individual to the town, long time here, I'm happy when I hear 0%. From a business side, I'm concerned about 0%. I believe that what we should be considering a modest tax increase rather than going to a 0. The 0 increase is appealing, but it's also imperative that we keep an eye on our long-term financial health and stability for a municipality. That includes everything from increasing transfers to reserves and also being cognizant and addressing inflation that I feel we're missing. Our reserve transfers have been, to be honest, underfunded, I feel, over the years. It's important to keep these municipal reserves for maintaining our infrastructure, responding to emergencies, and even funding our future capital projects that are outside of grants. By increasing our tax rate modestly, we also keep pace with inflation. Inflation last year in Alberta was 2.9%. We are losing buying power. I'm not saying we need to align fully with the tax rate, but I do feel that we should be adjusting part of it for that and moving it into transfers to our reserves. We need to maintain these high quality services that we have in Slave Lake. The services we have here, I think, are better than a lot of communities and that are of similar size and what they've had to deal with. That being said, I guess I can kick into a question as far as our transfer reserves and what our current reserve expenditures are and our future expenditures. Where are we at with that as far as, are we doing enough? Are we over relying on loans for the future? Or, because I understand for example, our sidewalks are outstanding by over $10 million now. And we've allocated, I think we've upped it. So we're $150,000.
150.
So that's not including future degradation of the sidewalks. That's currently where we're at. So where are we and what can we do?
Well, I mean, it all depends on, we do have, for our roads and sidewalks, I'd say that's kind of our best knowledgeable area. We do have a 10-year plan, and we do refresh that, and we do have Associated come up here and identify. And so at least we have that on the radar. As far as funding, I mean, it's nice to, have the cash on hand. But historically, we have relied on grants to push through some of those bigger projects. I don't think that's a bad strategy. The only thing that it does do is the bulk of our grant money does go into our roads. And so if we want to do anything else in the community, then we're finding alternatives to kind of fund that, or else we're deferring those types of projects. So on a individual basis for our roads, I think we're on an okay path. It just does dip into other areas, specifically parks in the MRC, where there could be some, bigger outstanding issues that we haven't addressed. As far as funding and financing goes, the town, I think, is in a really good spot here on our debt. We've continued to pay it down. I believe I have outlined in there, we roughly have about $20 million worth of potential borrowing. And again, that's something that we would tap into depending on the type of facilities and upgrades that we potentially would need. So, the one big one that's on the radar is, of course, the RCMP building, depending on how much that's going to cost. We do have the potential to fund and finance that. And then, of course, other bigger projects, whether it's be some MRC or some other type of facilities, there is a potential to borrow and fund through that. I mean, overall, in my opinion, yes, I'd always like to see our reserve transfers higher, but from what we have right now, we're balancing. But yes, we could always do more. I guess the biggest challenge we'll have with this budget, with the decrease of the photo radar, is that $100,000 into our park reserve. So that is going to be an area of concern going forward, is just getting that additional funding to our parks, because we have upped the sidewalks to 150, and historically we have used some of our used to be called GTF, it's now called CCFB, Canadian Building Fund Grant. We have used that on numerous occasions to offset our parks. So I mean, there is challenges, but for right now, I think we're holding the line.
Councilor Adams.
This, again, is a spot where I do, as you've heard me ad nauseum throughout all these meetings. But again, I would like to ask that we increase those and make that possibility to this budget is increasing our reserve transfers and making a tax increase of 1% to be modest, even though that does not meet the 2.9% inflation, nor does it meet our demand for infrastructure costs and the reserves we should be holding. I feel it is a point of moving forward rather than being 0%, because I feel that has caused us problems in the past with past councils holding at 0%. And then he's seeing a significant tax increase in 1 year that hurts people.
I will weigh in. So again, I wanted to thank administration and you, Roland, for your patience with a CPA at the helm. This has caused more time invested than your typical budget year and a lot more questions. So thank you and our all of the administrative team that has suffered through my questions throughout this process. I understand that this is not how we normally have done things. We put hundreds of hours to take a fresh look at budget this year, going down to the $500 line item, which I'm sure I got a few eye rolls for, to the $1,000 line item, to the $50,000 line item. So we took a very deep dive into this. Previous years, we had obviously a different mayor, and we also had passed a 2-year budget. So this was the first year that you all were stuck with me, guiding kind of through this process. With the 0%, I don't believe that the 0%, you'll hear the comment that 0% in everyone's going to do 0% in an election year and it's arbitrary. And I don't believe the 0% is arbitrary. And I do believe in contributing to reserve funds. And we do that. While there may be some that are short, I don't subscribe to the belief to increase taxes to put to unallocated reserves without a specific spending plan. I also believe without a plan that's fiscally irresponsible. I think that the public elected the current council to make these decisions. So without a plan just to increase taxes 1 or 2%, to say have an extra approximately 200,000 in reserves without a specific allocation, to me doesn't make sense right now. And we have had conversations at this council desk as well as with the CFO and Roland that there is currently a 10-year capital plan that is being updated, and to follow with that is going to be a reserve fund plan and strategy for council review and approval, so that we do take a look at, okay, water reserves might be great, utility might be okay, but what's our plan for sidewalks? What's our plan for roads? And I'm very happy to see that we are in the position we are with regards to debt load. So that is a sign. All municipalities have to borrow. So the fact that we are nowhere near our cap is fantastic. I think the 0% this year, given the increases of the past years, just shows that we are mindful of the costs that taxpayers are paying in 2025. There seems to be escalating costs without an escalating pay scale. And I know that also means escalating costs for the town. The town isn't immune to the supply costs. The town isn't immune to, increasing previously fuel costs. So those are coming down now, but we're not immune to any of the same costs that we all face in our individual household. That being said, I think we have taken a strong look at budget, and we basically tasked our administration to look at the services that we currently have and figure out how to do it better. Figure out how to do it more efficiently, look at things and see if it was why was that budget line item in there? Was that the way it was always done? Do we need it to be? Is there a better way? Hence the hundreds of questions that I've asked yourself and everyone else in this room. So I am proud of this budget. I think we put a lot of work in. Everyone at this table has asked a lot of great questions, and I think the effort level shows in that. It's been a challenging year, $170,000 in mandated policing costs. That's a huge hit to take. And we've taken a look and balanced protecting staff with increasing costs. And so that is my very long-winded rant about this year's budget. Councillor Hughes.
I'll weigh into with my commentary, kind of the same as my colleagues, but yeah, this year's budget was a very thorough review that I haven't done since being on this council. The level of detail this year that we went into was very extensive. And so, yeah, lots of hours of hard work, lots of questions and lots of conversations from everyone here. So I just want to thank everyone for their participation, especially admin, and of course to Mayor Ward as well. She really led the charge and she kept us organized with her love of spreadsheets this year. With life getting increasingly more and more expensive, I do love that we would be able to offer a 0% increase this year for our residents. I think it's a much needed reprieve for residents and businesses. And I do also agree with Mayor Ward's comment at the end of the day. I don't think we should be imposing even a 1% increase at this point to reserves without a thoughtful spending plan. So I do look forward to future conversations and that coming forward to this council.
Councilor Adams.
In regards to the comments about thoughtful spending plan and just randomly increasing taxes, it's not that I'm asking us to randomly increase taxes. The fact is we have a spending plan already that is $10 million deficient. So it's not that we're doing it random. It's that we are trying to get to a point that we can properly fund these reserves so that they can do the work that's already deficient and is already behind. That $10 million, I'm just talking sidewalks, is stuff that needs to be done now or is supposed to be done now. We keep putting it off and we keep trying to do what we can. And I understand that, but at $150,000 dent on a $10 million bill that is just going up every year, I'm sure that we do more than $150,000 in degradation to the sidewalks in town from what we're fixing. I would like us to see this is our opportunity to put money in towards that. Is it significant compared to the debt? Absolutely not. But for us to do 0%, again, we're going to see it in the future. We're going to have a significant tax increase in order to maintain this. And I'd personally like to hit my budget at 1%, then hit my budget in a couple of years at 7 or 8%.
Councilor Gramlich.
I agree with a lot of what you said, but like the 150 to the 10 million is not crushing it, right? You would agree with that. But right now, it's like one of the hardest times as an adult I've ever had with finances. Like the feds are passing money on to us, the provinces, right? This is the only table we sit at to keep taxes low. So I don't want to take Slave Lake's money now to save for a rainy day, because hopefully in 5 years, we have more money to spend. Like right now is the hardest time my family's ever had financially to make ends meet. So I don't know why we want to save right now when we could give everyone a break right now, and hopefully some changes happen within governments and we start having more free flowing money. And that's when we should be saving for a rainy day and spending. I just don't think now's the time to take the money from this year to save for down the road when this is the worst time possible for people financially that I can remember as an adult.
I will agree with that as well. I think the fact that we require additional funding isn't random. I understand that. I know we will need additional funding for our town to keep up with the infrastructure requirements. And when LGFF declined and all the other transfers declined, it will put multiple municipalities in an issue. It's a Canada-wide issue. I do think the random part of my comment is when we don't have a number of years and a dollar amount and where that reserve fund is best to be allocated. So if we take $100,000, what reserve fund should it go in? Which one is the best one for it to go in now? I do not want to take $100,000 and put it in unrestricted surplus for a future council to decide within what they do to it, because that is at council's full discretion. I would rather have an intentional thought out plan, because I'm not saying don't save anything. And we do save, we do have a reserve fund plan. We do have so it's not to communicate that we have zero reserves. We have reserves. We do communicate, we do contribute to reserves currently. So I'm not saying it's, we are going to need additional reserves. I think that we've had some surpluses that have gone into unrestricted surplus, mostly from staffing changes over the years, and we have had significant tax increases. And I do believe in a balanced approach, and I understand the theory of 1% to 2%. I think when we've had these large hits. And I think when this is in our control, I agree with Councillor Graham, like there are very few times that we are able to have a direct impact on the quality of life of our residents and monetarily, and this is one of them. So albeit small, a 1% would be a coffee a month for most households. I think that times are pretty tight for people, and I think that's important for me personally. Councillor Choba.
I'd like to make a motion that council adopts the 2025 operating and capital budgets as presented.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Okay, call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you, Roland. Alex, your CIO update.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And understanding that this update was prepared for a couple of previous council meetings and we've been postponed until today. So we'll start off with communications. We're continuing to see our average usage of our different social media platforms and website. Recently, we've started to streamline some of our posting going out. We're utilizing our newly updated webpage for some of our messaging. So you'll see some messages come out where if you want to get interactions with what's happening in community services, it'll be a link to a page with all of the different things that are taking place as an example. So in occupational health and safety, we are preparing for our external audit for 2025. We did receive back our documentation from our 2024 internal audit, and we were given a score of 87%. So I'd like to thank all of our town staff for continuing to focus on health and safety and reporting those incidents when they happen. We're also reviewing and updating our policies, specifically working alone right now on respectful workplace policy. In IT, we're continuing to look at working on the fiber connection for internet for the MRC and the water plant, and preparing for a mid to end 2025 update on that. As you were just updated on, the budget is now complete for 2025. And we're working on the GST return for the first quarter in finance. In utilities, obviously, snow removal for most of January and February was front and center. They're now focusing, it's not on the update, but obviously the catch basins and steaming due to the sudden melt that we've had over the last couple of days. So they're continuing to focus on that. They did have 2 water main breaks in the last few weeks, one in the southeast on 6th Avenue and one in Gloryland that they were able to quickly get a handle on. And they'll do some more work on that when the ground does warm up. In planning and development, working on the Green Space Alliance wrap-up and first draft of the land use bylaw and continuing with meetings on that, getting ready for the open houses. In the fire department, again, when this was written, we had 63 calls, the fire department had 63 calls. I think as of today, where they're sitting around 100, continuing to be busy, nothing outstanding. The calls are kind of on par for where they've been last year. As you were aware, the fire department did apply for the WUI team grant, and to this date, we're still waiting on an answer of that. So the official word was supposed to come out on January 31st. Enforcement services, we had 13 complaints or calls of concern. And in early February, we hired a peace officer who is now working by law until he gets his appointments, but he is out handling concerns and complaints as they come in. He is visible in community in the peace officer car, and he is working the full-time shifts right now. So. And community services, we have some free swims coming up. I apologize, I don't know if any of them taken place or not yet. And working on some of the other classes coming up. In facility and parks, they've been keeping up with the facilities, have also been keeping up with snow, rain, thaw cycles in the different facilities. January presented some risks, some managing of those risks, and making sure they have the resources during the weather events. The MRC hockey is starting to wrap up. The big tournaments are starting to finish up for the year. Community FCSS, they have some program updates. Adult programs are ongoing. And again, last but not least, some of the events taking place, the FCS Finger Foods and the Treaty 8 hockey tournament. I believe that's a typo, taking place in March, along with the playoffs for minor hockey, which started last week and will continue on throughout the next few weekends at the MRC. If you have any questions.
Counselor Adams.
I don't know if you can answer this or not, but I know with this freeze thaw cycle has been crazy within the community. Is this something we got to be concerned about with our roads, and how is that, are we going to be looking at more potholes in the area, more damage to our main road streets?
Steve, Councilor Adams, I don't know the exact answer, but I know they've been out dealing with, there has been some potholes that appeared recently because of so I'm not sure if it's any different than, Kush, do you have any?
Do you want to come up to the mic just so that
Thank you.
it picks you up?
Yes, chances likely are we will see more potholes, like there will be more surface that will open up because of movement. And depending on, and due to that, we are seeing more breaks in water main as well. Like we haven't seen this, in February, we haven't seen water main previously, right? And now we are seeing water main in February, right? So it's just, there will be some challenges to the infrastructure for sure.
Hey, while you're sitting there and stuff's coming out, did that plastifold, was that what it's called?
Plastifold, yeah.
Did that hold up? Still good?
Yeah, depending on if it's on a temperature sensitive cracks, which will move with temperature, it doesn't hold up really well. But if it's applied on a normal pothole or something like that, then it definitely holds up.
Is worth.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is working. Yes.
Cool, thanks.
Anything further? Counselor Adams.
Motion to accept as information.
Call to vote in favor. And that's carried. Anything for State of the Lake? Okay.
Well, I got stuff, but Andrew's got to explain it better. So Andrew invited, I think all of council, but some were available, some weren't. So I attended his event. I don't know if it's your event, but I'm going to call it your event. Had a great time. The best food I've had in a long time. So Andrew, take the mic over and tell us about your event and how successful it was, because I really enjoyed myself.
Okay, didn't plan for this, but I know. So this past weekend, the Afro-Caribbean Society of Slave Lake hosted its first ever Black History Month in Slave Lake. And again, it was just to celebrate heritage and culture, and to kind of bring that to our community, because we have more, and we're seeing more and more individuals that are from those communities, just like myself, and just basically showcasing what that culture looks like and bringing it out to the public to be able to experience some of that, because not a lot of people have experienced some difference in that culture. And so it was a great event, like Councillor Gramlich just said, lots of food, showcasing culture, attire, like outfits, hats, lots of hats, and lots of conversations around, what the struggles that individuals have been through, and some of the reality of the impact of colonization on different community members or communities, basically. So the Black community was one of them. And it was a good time. And special thanks to Councillor Gramlich and our MLA who were able to make it. And I understand others had prior engagements, which, they regret not being there, sorry. But there'll be one next year. So again, the hope is to continue to have this and host this in a way that will be reflective of the true diversity in our community. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight really quickly two groups with events coming up this weekend. So Stage North Association, it has a alternative country artist this Saturday at the Legacy Center as well. And there's some local musicians playing there as well. And then the Share group out of Smith, they're having their 4th annual Smith's Cajor and Cowboy Curling. And that's also this coming Saturday at the Smith Rodeo Grounds and starts at 11 a.m. So there's been a lot of excitement around that. Lots of businesses in our area are kind of participating and sponsoring and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you check out all the local events.
Counselor Choba.
March 7th is, there's going to be an International Women's Day event where they're hosting at the Legacy Center. I think FCSS in collaboration with Taproot Community Support Services are hosting International Women's Day, and the hope is to just kind of bring vendors together and hoping that the women in our community can take advantage of this and just go there. There's going to be wellness activities from what I hear, and flyers will be coming out soon, so look out for that. Thank you.
And a reminder that Pink Shirt Day is tomorrow. As council is here, we have done it ahead of time so that we're able to get a picture of all of us. And so tomorrow, as always, remember to be kind and wear pink to show your support of the day. And with that, Councillor Hughes,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
further discussion, call to question those in favor. And that is carried.